we are starting. Want to welcome Doug Orchard. He is the director, producer, writer, pretty much every aspect of this film, The Baby Boomer Dilemma. And it is a documentary. It is a dramatization, partially, but that's part of what we're going to get into today, about how he put that together and how he was able to design that. And I wanted to say welcome, Doug, and I appreciate you joining us today.
Hey, thank you very much, David, for having me. This is great.
Yeah, use Doug though. Don't say David.
I am so bad. Thank you very much, David. Doug.
That's all right.
Okay, so
That's all right.
just right now. Here's what we're gonna do. There we go.
Write me down. Write me down.
Thank you very much, Doug. How could I not remember Doug? We're the same name.
Exactly. Exactly. You're just not wanting to call somebody else your name is what it is. You want it all for yourself. But thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time out and sharing some of your thoughts and ideas about how this thing came about. So if you could give us a quick bio. Other folks always do that better than me, so I would like for you to give the quick bio so that we can understand who you are and what a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I am a filmmaker. I've made 8 major motion pictures.
Wow.
I'm multi-award winning, many of them. I make films that I go bounce back and forth between the financial world and the health world.
Okay.
So in the health world, I started back in 2009 making a documentary, interestingly enough, called The Truth About Pandemic Flu. That was with Tommy Thompson, who I made it with. He had just been the U.S. Health Secretary. He's a 4-term governor.
Sure.
And had the FDA and CDC in it. And then I made a film called Revenue Reserve, which was about commercial real estate.
Okay.
And then I made a film called The Motivation Factor, which won crazy awards everywhere. Still has a 5-star review everywhere. And then I made the film Fasting. And this was kind of what set off the whole fasting craze. People know fasting.
Yeah.
That's on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And one of the top 10 downloads, I believe, of Amazon Prime ever.
Wow.
And then I have a film that's called The Power of Xero, which was about the U.S. national debt. And both that and Revenue Reserve actually did look at questions about life insurance in there, about how it's to be used. People don't understand some of the aspects about that, why I use that instead of a bank account.
Sure.
And I've always been a filmmaker. I don't make any money either way. The movies, then I made From Jail Cell to Stem Cell, the next con for the ex-con. That I did through Con Movies, and I was director of that. And that looked at the stem cell industry. It was more of a Consumer Reports look. So we show the good and the bad.
Okay.
That industry. And then I made The Baby Boomer Dilemma, and I have a film coming out this fall called M&A, which is mergers and acquisitions.
Okay. Interesting. So what is your passion? That's a pretty broad scope there.
It's easy. It's easy. Every single movie ties back to the U.S. national debt.
Okay.
You watch any of my movies, you will see an absolute reference to that, because that's my political hot button. Some people like it's abortion. Some people it's about gender or whatever. Everyone has their thing.
Yeah.
What's my thing? Well, no one even talks about my thing. I don't have a candidate who cares, but mine is the U.S. national debt, because that will destroy freedom for everybody. I mean, once you can't finance your defense, once you can't finance your retirement for everyone who has promised in, once you can't respond any longer to emergencies, once you can't do anything, once you can't pay your employees, once you can't even, once you're done, your dollar's worthless, you destroyed in that process everybody's wealth. And so the U.S. national debt, the overspending that we're talking about, is my issue, and I'm very passionate. I know a lot about it.
Let me ask you this. I'm interested, because how far can we go? I mean, we had in one of your guys, David Walker, In the film there, he's been talking this since 2005, 2006.
2004, I started following him when I was driving
Yeah.
across the Mojave Desert and heard him talking at the University of Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing I can get on driving through the Mojave was this, public service radio interview
Yeah.
that probably no one else was listening to at the time.
Yeah.
He was the U.S. Controller General. He was explaining that George Bush wasn't even doing a meeting with him, talking about it. He couldn't even explain to him, hey, we're having a problem.
Yeah.
5 years ago, we projecting no more national debt. We were going to pay it all off.
Yeah.
Now it's just like looking bad. We went the wrong direction. Got to do some things. And of course, that is the response. Both political parties are guilty. Some could argue one's worse than another and all that stuff. And I think maybe that definitely could be the case, but it's not like they're that much bad. They're both horrible. And so the question is, in these movies, I gave up trying to fix it at the federal level. I just gave up because I realized how this whole thing works. So my focus in my movies became, what do we as the citizens do to protect ourselves as this thing goes cruddy for us? Because you say, how far can it go? It doesn't mean you're not going to be the United States or anything. But it does harm you. And there are things you can go to that are better than others. And sometimes those go against the grain of the narrative that we've been listening to for a long time.
That's right.
And so I decided to look at these topics in movies and in film that are rated by the Motion Picture Association. And that's important for people to understand. Most documentaries are not. I would estimate that 99-point-something% of all documentaries are not rated by the Motion Picture Association.
Wow.
Someone should actually do a research project and see this. And the reason being is they can't be, because most are infomercials. They're the way they're funded, what they're going to do with it. The Motion Picture Association has a screen. They have a group of people who give it the rating. Hey, is there nudity here? Hey, how many language things are going on? What is this? And should kids be watching? There's all these things about why you're going to do a rating, right? But then they have a group of people who look at it as a question of, should this receive a rating? Is this art?
Yeah.
Or is this an infomercial? Is this a corporate ad? Right? The moment it's a sales pitch and not an art. Now, a lot of you are saying, well, I've seen stuff that got rated and it's showed in theater, and I think it's definitely a sales pitch. Well, that might be true, but they were clever enough to still make it enough art that it was art, and so I wanted to be art because then I have third-party stamp of this is objective, and it also gives me cover when I go interview people, because I go interview people who would love for it to become an ad for them.
Sure.
I can't put that in, so it's a cover for me to kind of get everybody to behave and say, I just need the facts. Just give me this.
Yeah, that's good. Let me ask you this. How did you choose the people to participate in this film? Because they've got really high pedigrees. These are some really smart people, tons of credibility in their fields and what they're talking about here. And there's tons of people out there like that. How did you specifically go after these guys, and what were they bringing to the table that you wanted there?
There are not tons of people like this.
Okay.
Each of these people are the top in what they are. Top.
Okay.
Now this is something I know a lot about.
Right.
In '95, I made more technical placements than anyone else in the United States. I was the industry rainmaker in headhunting in the tech world.
Okay.
I was in Northern California. And I became very good. My background was competitive intelligence, master's library science, and I became an expert on, before there was a World Wide Web, on how to track industry experts based on their habits on the internet.
Okay.
And I went and showed Microsoft, Apple, Sun, Viacom, everybody how to do this stuff.
Wow. And
the first role, if you're going to do headhunting, is you need to find out who is the best. Like, there's a ways to do that. Back before we had electronic databases, we had the bibliometric citation index. And that was an index that would track how many times people are cited, their works are cited.
Okay.
And you can go look, and there's all these different methods you would use. But as clever as all that sounds and makes me, and I do run through all those exercises.
Yeah.
What I always did for this is, once I was interviewing someone who was really, really smart, like Cheryl Moore, who was kind of the competitive intelligence person for the insurance services industry.
Right.
So I'm interviewing her. I said, you get one name. Who's the one person that absolutely has to be in this movie? That this movie would be a complete fail if they're not in it. Like it would be like, I mean, they have to be in the movie. Who is that?
I'm dying to know. Who would that
And
be?
she said, David Babel. You have to get David Babel. And I was like, well, who's David Babel? And can you introduce me?
Yeah.
Which she did. And so I got David Babel that way. Then I asked the same question, David Babel, who has to be in this movie? Like who? Oh, you've got to have Olivia Mitchell, their warden. Olivia Mitchell is the expert on Social Security and on pensions in the world. You have to have her.
Yeah.
So then I'm with Olivia Mitchell. Olivia, and of course, he introduces me to her.
Sure.
And I try to get her, by the way, for Power of Xero, and she wasn't talking. But with David, I was able to get her. And then Olivia Mitchell, who has to be in this movie? Oh, you've got to get Bill Sharp, Nobel Prize winning economist out of Stanford. I go, nobody talks to him anymore. He's like totally retired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll work on getting him. 3 weeks later, he checks his email, and she was able to get him for me. So that's kind of how it goes. Just so you know, one gives me the other. You go through that. Not all the referrals are someone I actually decided, whatever, but usually they knew. They know their space better than all of us on the outside know their space.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And the thing about it too is, and you may know this better than me, but I didn't see a script. I couldn't tell that they were on a script. I think these people were just talking. And
oh no, I go in and I do a thorough interview. And I tell them that, and I don't usually have questions, just so everyone knows, like, how do you do these interviews? I walk in with a camera and me, and there's not a note anywhere.
Yeah.
Now that's how I've done all my stuff.
Okay.
Now I've done all this research before and I've read stuff and looked, but I also explain, and I spend a lot of time in those interviews explaining what we're trying to accomplish and what the issues are and what the weak spots are and this or this. And I'm leaning on their not just what they know on that one topic and they've been writing about recently, but in their entire career, their entire lifespan of all the things they've seen. What can they tell us about this right now? Yeah. And this was super interesting. And it was something all of them wanted to talk about because all of them have done serious research in this space and developed these very complex financial models that got published. Some of them got Nobel prizes for them, right? Yep. But then when it came to what do you actually do for your retirement? Right. Yeah. They're like, it's not what they do. And that's what comes through in the movie. I'm going to let people watch the movie because it's shocking to see they do these simple things and they explain why. Well, I think I might have cognitive decline and this requires me to have this super amazing person manage it. But then if they're really that good, they always get a job somewhere else. And I've got this person I have to deal with. Then I have to move. And I'm not going to want, and they talk about the why, and then they say, but there's other risks. So this might give me more money under these perfect vacuum, but then there's I might live too long. And then there's the inflation. And then there's what if I get sued by the mailman? David Babel tells this crazy story about his mailman speeding around the corner because he goes down to Daytona Beach every now and again. The mailman did, and would do the races at Daytona Beach where they're the kind that you pay to be able to race. I know all about that. Daytona Beach is 15 minutes from my house right now, the speedway. And at night when the windows are open, I hear it. Like they let them race at night. Yeah. So this mailman was one of those guys. So what did he do? He comes speeding around the corner in that little lame Jeep that they have, whatever. And tire comes off or some crazy thing happens. He ends up going on David Babel's driveway or going on, smashes through his mailbox, goes on his yard and like hits the corner of his house or some crazy thing. Whatever happened, something happens. Well, neighbor comes out, David comes out, that's crazy. There was no one, there was no cat, there was no chipmunk crossing the road. There was no excuse for this guy, right? It was just him doing something crazy. And he's supposed to be a decent driver, right? Look what he did. So the guy sues him. Oh, wow. Sues David. And David's like, what is this? And David, they end up kind of, they just kind of like, they just calmed down. Everything seemed calm. And then David started noticing his mail being opened. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The guy's checking his stuff. And he was like, should I should I call the post office? And then, but at that time we were reading about these people going postal at the post office, and he was worried about that. And so here he had the potential, doing nothing, sitting in his house, doing nothing wrong, of a major lawsuit that come after him, right? For nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what case it would be, but there's always something, someone's coming after you. He was used as an extreme example that someone always wants access to our pile of money once we have a pile of money.
Yeah.
And he liked what he did with his money because they didn't have access to it anymore.
Yeah.
So that was important to him.
Yes.
And then he was the expert on inflation. He wrote his dissertation on inflation.
And nobody really has cared about inflation for so long, and now it's become the centerpiece. It's become
and this was over a year ago that we did this interview, and it wasn't really being talked about yet.
Yeah.
And I've only been worried about inflation. My son just got wrote his PhD on dissertation on inflation. He's just got a job. He's going to be working for the Fed.
Yeah.
And so I've been kind of interested in the topic because he talks about it.
Sure.
And I was just interviewed yesterday on a national radio TV show. He was interviewed for the news in Japan. He showed me his thing about his inflation dissertation.
Sure.
He's got actually knows stuff. I just interview people who do. And so it was really interesting, though, that David Babel was so ahead of this and he saw it coming. You can't spend $10 trillion like we just did and not experience inflation. You can't. Well, you can. I mean, you could say, hey, we're deflating so much that we can almost throw money into it. There's no consequence. And we thought we were doing that when the country, that's what we were doing. Right. And it felt like it was still working.
Yes.
Then we have the COVID. It seemed like, oh, you can do whatever you want. Just keep throwing it in.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, at some point this is going to end. Do you really think you can do this? And you're doing things no one's ever done, direct checks to the citizens. There's no journal articles peer reviewed about these strategies. We're just doing whatever.
Just throwing money at it, hoping that I think it was just to pacify the people for them to continue doing what they were doing.
Oh, there's more to it.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing a film about that right now. But yeah, there of course was way more money being thrown other places too.
Yes.
And it's disgusting what's happened. But the bottom line is for us, getting back to the actual individual, me, my family, what am I going to do knowing our government spending this kind of thing?
Yes.
I wanted to know, what should I do? I don't really necessarily trust anybody, but I kind of was curious what these people were doing because I knew they weren't making any money from financial services.
Right.
These were professors.
Yes.
And they were professors who were looking at retiring shortly and they've looked at this question their entire career and have written everything that's been peer reviewed on the topic and have been awarded Nobel Prizes because of the research.
Yes.
Nobody's done the research at their level ever. And no film's ever been made interviewing just them, right? Nothing's ever been done, ever. And so in the history of the motion picture since 1906, we've never, ever had one film that actually was MPA rated on retirement income ever. We waited till 2021 to actually make this movie, which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
And you're the one that did it. And so I applaud you for doing that because and you did it in such a way that it involved a family, it involved emotion, it involved, and you want to say a dramatization, but it really brought people into a real life situation rather than seeing a bunch of charts and graphs and really smart people talking about numbers. It was the boots on the ground, so to speak, of a family experiencing what do we do? And my next question that I have for you is, with this retirement thing that's going on in America and what we're facing here as a country, the baby boomer dilemma and how you picked the dilemma that you picked, because we've got, taking Social Security, the dilemma, do we take it soon or do we take it late? Do we put our money in a risk position or in a no risk position? Do we continue working? Do we not work? Then we got defined benefit versus, defined contribution. How did you determine what dilemma to make this movie about? And how did you decide on that?
Well, the dilemma is, where can you put your money and sleep at night and know you're going to still have it no matter how long you live, right?
Yeah.
Where do you park your hard-earned assets and
Yes.
be able to go to sleep?
Yes.
That is the dilemma. And why is it a dilemma?
Yes.
And so the film actually shows them. I wanted to look at the traditional income sources. Now, people could say, hey, you skip this and this, and you could make arguments that there are other things that have been skipped. But the core for the average person, it's pensions, both public and private, so they both get treatment.
Yeah.
It's Social Security.
Yes.
It's 401ks or 403bs, 403(1)as, and all the things that are in qualified plans, right? So basically the stock market, right? That's what the risk. And then it is annuities, which is, or guaranteed income sources, right? Is what we're talking about. So when we look at that, what are we looking at? Well, I'm going to put them just four, because pensions, Social Security, 401k, and annuities. Right. I wanted to find out, what is the guarantee of these? And then I want to know, who is the guarantor of it? I mean, it's one thing to say it's guaranteed. By who? I mean, at this moment, when we're looking at our federal government, the problems we're starting to see, there's Argentina, there's Brazil. Brazil had 140% inflation in a year. Yes. We're going, hey, we're like, hey, we were 6%. Hey, we're 7%. Now we just found out we were 8.6%.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, I know that my house area, everything went up $100,000 in a year. Yeah. These were houses that were 250 that are now almost 4. So that's not even 8%. So we know how they cherry pick and what they count, and like gas went up way more than that. Food went up way more than that. I don't know how they even landed on 8%. I mean, is something going down that's averaging it out? How is only 8%? Because I'm telling you, I make a crazy load of money right now compared to normal, right? Yes. And my wife and I, we really aren't spending anything extra. We're like, well, what are other people doing?
Yeah.
How are they doing it? I don't understand how people are living, because I make way more than I normally make. I had a movie come out, usually and I'm like, how are they living?
I know.
It's crazy. It's so hard. I got a quote for my backyard. I just landscaped everything. And I got a quote for my lawn a year ago. It was going to cost $4,000 to put sod in, $4,000. A year later, I get the same guy out to give me a quote. Hey, we're now ready to go. We finally, because it takes forever to get cement, and it takes forever. I'm in Florida, and everyone's doing everything here. $10,000. It was $4,000 last year. Now it's 10. I go, did grass go up? What? Why is it 10? Yeah. I mean, I didn't pay 10. Yeah. But I got somebody else who paid a little less, but I didn't pay 4 either. Yeah. Or 6. In other words, it just was crazy. So this 8% is kind of a joke anyway. But the bottom line is, what I agree to know is, what's the guarantee promise?
Yes.
Who's the guarantor of it? And then finally, and to me, most important, what's the financial health of that guarantor?
Yes, absolutely.
Those are really important questions. And I'm not aware of anywhere you can go to get the answers to those 3 questions on those 4 things. Yeah. And that's what this movie, I came out just, wait, what's this movie? Doug Orchard, what is that movie? Now you'll watch, you may not think that's that movie, but I'm telling you, that's the movie I made. I wanted everybody to know that. I wanted everyone to know and not have the wool pulling over their eyes when they're meeting with somebody.
Yes.
And saying, you should buy this thing. I want them to understand, well, I got these other options, or, hey, you're good. You got your pension. Well, yeah, but my pension says it's 85% funded, but I learned in this movie that that's a public pension, and that they're crediting off of an 8% interest rate.
That's right.
And that all private pensions are based on 2% right now. And so they are overstating it by 4-fold when they say we're funded at 85%. Then what is it really funded at? And of course, we see in the film, this is kind of a little bit of if you haven't seen the movie, it's a spoiler alert, that you have the Nobel Prize winning economist, Bill Sharp, who's sitting right now with his group at Stanford, looking at CalPERS pension and other public pensions, and says it's disgusting, calls it disgusting, horrible economics, and creepy. Those are the words he uses to define what they're doing. And who has a CalPERS pension? My dad. My dad's got a CalPERS pension. He's got CalPERS and he's got Social Security. He's 85 years old. So I'm telling you, I was putting that in the movie because I wanted my dad to know. And I want other dads of people, and I'm 52. Yes. I got some time, but you know, we really need to tell people the truth.
Yeah.
And we're not telling people the truth. Why aren't we telling the truth? You know, we're adults. We should be able to handle this. I'm so sick and tired of this stuff. So the subtitle for this film is An Expose on America's Retirement Experiment. We don't have huge histories of providing any of these services other than annuities, actually, but we don't have huge histories of doing these things that we've been doing.
No. And you think about if you look back in history, I mean, we've been a country for 200 plus years. You know, the Roman Empire was 1,000 years. The Egyptians were 2,000 years. The Chinese going way longer than that. And so, you know, we're relatively a young country, so to speak, and we're really just now getting to the right part of when I mean ripe, RIPE, of when these retirement plans are coming to fruition to really work for the American people that were put in place back in the 70s and 80s when our friend Ted Benna was putting these first 401ks in. And look at the problems that have come when the baby boomers finally hit retirement. We've not been seeing these things working properly. People are having to continue to work. Inflation, you know, if you're paying 30% in taxes and you know, things go up by 10% in cost, that's 40% you're paying out of your pocket, you know, the next year when you're with the inflation at a minimum. And so I just feel like we're seeing that this retirement system that we've set up for this country is not working properly. And listening to the industry talk, you're just supposed to keep throwing money at the market. You're just supposed to keep putting money in and buying hope. And to me, in my practice, I've been doing this for 35 years. That is the most wrong thing you can possibly do. I don't understand why we have to, as concerned practitioners, financial practitioners, continue to preach protection. You would think that would be something that people could gravitate towards, grab onto. That's what I was just immediately attracted to this movie. One of your guys, Barry Dyke, that was in the movie, had called me and told me about what was happening here. He and I are good friends. And I was just overjoyed that you would put this thing together. And because it's going to help me get my message out as to why people need to really get back to and think about the security and protection and putting seatbelts on their money, because it's now more than ever is the time to do something like that. And I just feel like as an industry, we have your CFPs and your RIAs and all these different certifications that people get. I don't feel like that it's their job to push people towards the market. It's more of about looking at people's money and saying, what's the best thing for these individuals? And if it's safe money, then that's what they need to do. But I don't think that's going on out there. What do you think, Doug?
Well, I think that the fact that this movie's title is The Baby Boomer Dilemma is really a nice platform to explain something to all baby boomers, and that is the world has revolved around you since the days you were born.
That's a great point. That's a great
politically, when we look at what happened in the 60s, you look at the 70s, you look at the why you haven't been told the truth about all these issues. Why? Because politically voting, they need your votes. You've been given a song, you know, and dance and told flattery is always a lie. It's a lie that you want to hear. That's flattery. Yeah. So you've been told, oh, don't worry, we're going to get this fixed. Well, if they were going to fix Social Security, why haven't they? And watch what happens every time they do. And every time someone tries to even bring it up, they make political ads showing them push grandma off the cliff or something, right? and yet we learn in the movie from Olivia Mitchell, and she says it right in the trailer, so that if we do nothing, then the haircut will probably be about a third of whatever the promised benefit shows you right now.
It's amazing.
And so by doing nothing, or making it a political issue by politicizing it, you are taking that money from grandma.
Yeah.
So that is
Yeah.
happening. And the big expose here, it's a soft kind expose, but it is showing what's really truly happening. And so as a baby boomer, you need to understand you have been lied to, but at the same time, you've also been a source of a lot of money because there's so many of you. So you've had, you know, you had cereal boxes for you and all these safety measures. And we finally did seat belts for you, and you follow it all the way through. It was for you.
That's right. That's right.
I'm Generation X. No one gives a freaking rip about us. Nothing. Wouldn't have even heard of Generation X, right?
Yeah,
They've talked about it for like a nanosecond. I mean, you know, I only know it because that's what I am. There's like another generation before you guys that no one even knows the name of that one. Like they don't even have a name. So, I mean, maybe there's a name, but they don't even know their name. I've asked them, what's your name? You're 80 years old. Who are you guys?
Who are you?
They knew the other people before them, but they don't know that in between one.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. And I say that because politically, we never rewarded a politician for telling you the truth. And you go back and watch it and look at it. I'm just telling you.
You're right.
You're not ever rewarded. We have rewarded the politicians who have lied to you. We've rewarded the financial services who have lied to you.
Yes.
We have rewarded the lie. It was flattery. They said it to the most. They feel like they had to, you know, from it's okay to have sugar smacks and now you got diabetes, right? It's okay. Oh, hey, this is going to solve, just take this statin drug and oh, let's not mention the fact that it stopped your stem cells from repairing and now you got joint pain and oh, we're going to get this drug now. And we just go through the whole thing and no one's really telling the truth. So there's that going on, and it's kind of the why. It's the money. It's the money there. It's the money why.
Yeah.
And so here's a movie of a guy who doesn't make any money from financial services industry, interviewing a bunch of people who don't make money from the financial services industry, and just made that movie.
And telling the truth. And telling the truth.
And that's what it is. It's different, but at the same time, part of the film suggests that having some guarantee revenue is a really, really not just a good idea. It's the idea that every economist agrees on.
Yes.
That some portion in annuity makes sense. And you know, the details, of course, are up for interpretation and debate by everybody. But the concept is absolutely not refuted by anyone in that space.
Yeah.
In economics, which is fascinating because that's an area that has a lot of disagreement. And so knowing that, then what do we do? You're a baby boomer and you're like, okay, now you start watching groups that only sold stock, Fidelity, start selling annuities. You're seeing JP Morgan pushing annuities. You're like, wait a second, what's going on?
Yeah.
They all are going to get in the annuity business. So that's what I discovered. I didn't go into this in the movie, but everybody's going to jump into the industry. Why? Because now you baby boomers have saved all your money. You got a big pile of money. Right. It's all there. And they know what's going to happen. That market is going to happen. There's this guy who wrote this book, Prosperity in the Age of Decline, back in 2013. Mm-hmm. He's the one that called for in 2008, saying that we're gonna have a depression, but he called for it in 2004.
Okay.
And he has huge corporations who follow him. And in 2013, they said, oh, hey, we're gonna have a Great Depression, by the way, in 2030, because of Social Security, we're gonna have a haircut. And there's so many of them that's gonna put us in a structural depression, just a structural one. Mm-hmm. GDP is gonna be below. It's not just a recession, but it's structurally so low, it's a depression from 2030 to 2036. So I'm watching that, I'm looking at that, and they're going to be my next movie. And I've already done an interview last June, and it comes out in the fall. And I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, well, I don't want to live through that. No. And I asked him, I said, is there any way to avoid this? And he says, well, the only way to avoid it is if the government were to fix Social Security, and they're not doing that. There's no way we're going to do that.
Yeah.
I go, well, I think I have another way. He goes, what's that? Well, what if all these baby boomers didn't stop spending that dollar amount?
Yeah.
Because they anticipated it and they had guaranteed income and they rode through it those 6 years. They knew it was happening and they were good.
Yeah.
But we still, he goes, oh, we would be the only country in the world. We would be like after World War II, and we didn't have our infrastructure damaged, our manufacturing, and we just went boom, and the rest of the world were just trying to rebuild their plants, we would have that kind of advantage on the rest of the world.
Sure.
We did that. And so I'm like, hey, and now I don't put that in the movie, but if you're asking me the question, why, what motivated me for this? It's that. If we can get the baby boomers to actually be prepared right now so that they know that they have their essential needs met through guaranteed sources, anticipating a third of a haircut in Social Security, and that they're good, we're not going to see this big drop, because nothing else is going to drop. It's just, we have so many retirees in 2030. All the baby boomers are retired, all of them. And those are above them, and we live a long time. Well, what happens if you cut Social Security by even 10%? A 10% haircut puts us into a structural depression in the United States of America. And it's not just here. Baby boomer is a worldwide phenomenon.
Yes, sir.
It's happening all over the world. China, by the way, their population is going to be cut in half in 30 years. And by the turn of the century, they are projected to have the same population in the United States of America. People think, oh, China's going to take over. China's done. China's not our problem. They're not done. They already peaked. So
wow.
And it all is the demographics. The United States has inflation, has immigration, lots of it. Good kind, bad kind, whatever you say. We have a lot of, and so we keep it growing. So the only thing we need to do is not screw up ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's Social Security. That's it. Like, that's going to kill us. Or if we could plan on it, we could be ready. So I'm working through financial advisors, the distribution model, like you. So Doug, you are huge, but you're playing in theaters. You're giving these copies out to people, and it's and we're a filmmaker trying to reach everybody in their old silo. Like, it's impossible. Hollywood now, we have to make reruns of everything just because you're working with an existing audience. It's impossible financially to just come up with a brand new art and reach the wide. That's done. That's gone. Those days are over. You don't see that anymore. It's either a Netflix, or it's an Amazon, it's an iTunes, or it's a Disney. That's it. That's all you got. You got nothing else anymore.
That's right.
Or weird, random, independent people like me who decide to make a movie and then find a way to reach the wide audience, which is what you're doing.
Do you think that one of those guys would pick you up as far as being able to get you out there in the streaming world?
Oh, they want it. I mean, I have the largest distributor who wants to put this on right now, but what happens is the moment I do that, I won't have a financial advisor promote it. So when you decide to host a thing, you do a 10,000 piece mailing. 10,000 people just heard about my movie.
That's right.
And I have right now 161 theaters going right now today. Well, that's just 3 weeks old. It's grown. So I don't know, but every day I got all these people doing it. So 10,000 times 160, it's a number, right? Yep. And if I put it on, let's see, who would pick it up? Netflix or whatever. They don't do any promotion. It's just sitting there.
Yes, just there.
And so no one's going to find out about it. And it's only if you have, I don't even have Netflix.
Yeah.
I don't have Hulu. I don't have like, people are like, well, what do you do? I read. That's what I do. I actually read. Okay.
That way you can choose. You can choose what goes into your mind.
I don't want to get their way they present stuff messing me up. I know what I want to present. And so we had an acting story in the film as well. And that acting story came about at the end. After I did the interviews and saw that there was this Florida pension story, that they were the first state to privatize or offer this option to take your public pension and put it into the equivalent of a 401k. And inside that, you had annuity choices or stock choices, whatever they're called, mutual fund options, whatever. You could manage it yourself, and then you change jobs, you could take it with you. But if you stayed in the pension, nothing goes with you. That's just the way pensions work. And so when I saw that there was this story and that I'd already interviewed Moshe Molesky already for the movie, I called him up and said, "Hey, Moshe, are you still in America?" Because he was Canadian, but he couldn't get back, and he was. I'm leaving tomorrow, or let's see. I called him on a Thursday night. He was leaving Saturday morning. Called him Thursday night. He goes, "I leave Saturday morning." He goes, "Where are you?" And I was in a car in Charleston, South Carolina, interviewing someone. It's supposed to be at 10 the next day. I changed that appointment to 6:15 a.m. so that I could interview the guy and drive all the way down to Miami and re-interview Moshe Molesky. And he was very passionate and animated then, because I
Yeah.
said, we are going to talk about Florida, and I'm going to have an acting story, act out what this real story is. It's a real true story,
Yes.
but you know, there's obviously some fictional elements of it,
Yeah.
but it's a really true story that comes through. And I got actual,
and that was a real family too, wasn't it?
That's a real family. They're actually a YouTube sensation called Sunshine Mafia.
Okay.
They're you know, interracial couple. Their kids are friends with my kids. There are three kids that are shown in there. There's 2 boys and a girl. They all stood on the platform at State in Florida for wrestling a month ago. All 3 of them.
How about
Super impressive.
Yeah.
So anyway, fun stuff. He played for BYU football. His kid's like a sophomore right now in high school and just finished his AA degree in college.
Wow.
They're
So
super smart.
these were real people, real family. And I don't know how you could make a more truer documentary of the system that we're in right now with the personalities that you had, along with the dramatization of the family that was used in that. Let me ask you this, and because this whole thing is to try to be convincing to people to dig down and to develop a passion for their future and for their money. Besides just watching the movie, what do you think people can do for themselves to educate themselves even more? I know watching the movie kind of wakes things up, but what do you, from your perspective, what do you think people should be trying to do on a day-to-day, you and me level to secure, protect, and look after themselves?
Well, first off, I think everyone should know that I have a requirement. When someone shares my movie, they're entitled to have some type of free consult with someone like you, Doug.
Right.
And that's a requirement. That's the deal.
Sure.
They have to buy a license, but I'm only letting you have a license if they can get that deal. And I want every single person to call and find out from you, hey, what's the right time to draw Social Security for me? Even if I've already met with these people. And a lot of people, we've met with people, but you know, haven't you ever observed that whatever you walk in looking for a solution happens to be exactly what they have, people are selling? So you know, as an adult, you need to understand that. And so, you know, you call someone like you and say, hey, what's the right time? This guy said it should just draw at 62. And you probably would say, well, if you can wait till 70, they're going to make 70% more money for the rest of your life. So you maybe, you want to wait. And then, and you could actually get some framework and actually run an illustration and say, here's what you got, all this pile of money here, but what if you were to parse off this much, and what kind of lifestyle do you really want? And do you want to have, I think that we are chasing things and we're running so fast that what we've lost is the thought. And you say, what do? I watch stuff. No, I don't watch that much. Honestly, I think a lot and I read a lot. And if you look at what I'm reading, some of this stuff was written. You mentioned, Greece. You didn't mention Greece, but I read a lot of stuff from Greece too. Solon, it's up on my shelf. Solon was the guy that wrote the Constitution for the Greeks. It lasted for 1,000 years and everybody hated him because everybody wanted to make changes based on the whims of what they wanted to do to the people. And then they had this document that kind of slowed them down. We are living that right now in the United States. We are seeing freedom of speech. We are seeing so many things attacked, and we have these things written down for a reason. And so what you need to do is you need to think seriously about the lifestyle you really want to have, that you don't want at risk. And because it's pretty easy to sit there in a very short 20-minute meeting with a financial consultant and say, hey, do you want to have your essential needs met? Okay, it should be this. This is going to cover your Social Security. This is going to cover your cell phone. This is going to cover this. And there you go. And then no one's calculating that, we may have worse inflation or this and this. And then, well, hey, are you ever want to go on a vacation? Are you ever going to want to go visit your family? Because all your kids don't live. I have none of my kids living by me here in Florida. They're all over the place.
And mine too.
The Federal Reserve Bank board isn't here, it's in DC, so that son's over there and everyone's everywhere. So it costs money, So what do I want? I want to guarantee for me a really high level of standard. That's what I want.
Sure.
I don't even care if I make too much money. That's what I want. So everybody has their thing. So you need to think and ponder. So it's not just what other people are saying. I think you need to think for yourself. Really think and ponder, what do you want and what's going to allow you to sleep at night and have a smile on your face. They say that people, when they're 80 years old, are at their happiest phase of their entire life. They're happier than the people in their 40s, 30s, everything else. Why?
Interesting.
Usually they figured out their financial solution and it's not changing.
Yeah.
They've accepted, here's where I'm at, and then they relax and they smile, right? And
just start living.
well, and a lot of them did it right. You know, they actually have that. So you want to be in that category. So these are all things to think about. But so I know I'm not answering your question about what to read this or that.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I'm saying they need to think and they need to talk to you or someone like you.
Yep.
And actually take advantage of those conversations and really think through it. And then make sacrifices, you know, for that future, because, you know, we're adults and we should understand, no matter how many people want to lie to us, that all government does is keep us at best at the poverty line.
That's right.
That's its best. That's in the history of our government. They've never helped anyone do anything better than reaching the poverty line. No. Show me anybody, unless you're a hedge fund or a corporate CEO who has access to some special fun money. But I mean, the average Joe, that's all it is. And then go look at the poverty line and say, is that what I want? And if that's not what you want, then, you know, we got to really come through.
You got to do what but you have to do it at the you and me level. You can't be looking, you know, at the financial entertainment or the government to give you.
Oh, no. Okay. Financial entertainment, it's entertainment. And we have to understand all news is not news. It's all funded by advertisements. It's about eyeballs and clicks. That's all that is. Yes. And it's all it is. And when you say, well, what about you, Doug Orchard? I only make money if you buy my movie. That's it. Okay, that's it. And that's the only way I make any money at all. I'm not tied to anything else. Yeah. and I get a lot of offers from people like, hey, I can give you this. I can give this little kickback, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but then I can't make that statement. I kind of like saying that.
Yeah. Yeah. I like my independence.
I like that. But we do need to understand, it doesn't mean you don't listen to people, but you got to understand that there's a reason why they say what they say. And when you get to smarter people than they, and it's not about their following, that means absolutely nothing. That just means they know how to market. That's all it means. Yeah. And we got to stop thinking that that person who has this many millions of subscribers on YouTube, that they're somehow an expert. Just means they know how to get millions of followers. That's it. That's all.
I know.
That's it. That's nothing. So, you know, talk to people who are a lot older, what they did, what they actually lived through, and just look at what's really happening. You don't. This is pretty easy to see. Yeah, it's pretty easy to see. It
really is. You're exactly right, Doug. It is to me, it's obvious. I mean, I look at the pension system, and we have so many major Fortune 500 corporations that are moving their pension plans into annuity positions with life insurance companies through pension risk transfers. And I talk to my clients about if you're seeing these companies, these large corporations moving billions of dollars for thousands of employees into safe positions, isn't that some type of shouldn't that be some type of trigger for you to at least look at what they're doing and saying, if they're moving this kind of money over here, maybe my 500,000 or $1 million or 2 million, 3 million, whatever it is that they've got, I might need to be looking at some of the same things, or some of take some of the same measures as far as the protection elements go that these large corporations are taking. Use them for an example, but it's still, you know, a tough thing to convince people that protection is the key to having their money and having a great retirement.
There's a lot of smart people that are pretty powerful that are not looking out after you. You know, we really need to understand this. And so a lot of people say, well, I'm going to keep in the bank. That's my ultimate safety net. Okay. Yeah. So when I made revenue reserve, I had an observation. I'm not going to explain why I take the time to why, but I had the chance to review the financials of the largest borrowers in the country who were commercial borrowers, almost all of them. And I got the biggest ones in that film and later. But when I looked at it, interviewed them, and I found out that all of them, most of these people were all clients of what was called WAMU, Washington Mutual, WAMU.
Yep.
It went down. Chase took them over as a bank, a lender. They were the biggest in California commercial lender.
Wow.
And what happened was commercial borrowers keep 25% generally of all their asset value in cash in a checking account or a savings account at the bank that they lend it from. So when you sit there and go, well, so how much is that? Well, some of these big guys had 150 million, 250 million, $500 million sitting in a savings account.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds crazy to a lot of people, but that's what they did.
Yeah.
So you're the vice president of it, and these are all your clients, and you know the bank is starting to have financial problems and probably is going to go down, and that Chase is going over, and you know that because you've already got the new job coming in, because you were in the top cream.
That's right.
What do? You quietly call all night long every one of your biggest clients and say, you have to move over your $150 million right now.
Yeah.
And move it over to here right now.
Yeah.
And so there were billions and billions of dollars pulled out in a couple hours.
Wow.
And that's why that bank went down that fast. Now, nobody called the little widow who had $250,000 sitting there and was only insured for $150 at the time. No one called that person. No one called the small business who had, $300,000 sitting in their checking account or the savings account. No one called them.
That's right.
They were calling the guys who had 150 million. If they called the small guys, it wouldn't even have been a big deal. But when they called those big guys and they started pulling out, and you're like thinking, well, why was Europe charging interest rates, negative interest rates? Why were they charging them to hold money in the bank accounts? They didn't want to have these huge piles because if they just took it, fell fast, it caused the bank to go down on their solvency ratio after Dodd-Frank. And I say all that because none of that applies on these insurance companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
None of it applies, but it all absolutely applies when someone very smart says, okay, there's a problem with our company. We got to move the money. You may want to sell your stock right now.
That's right.
Oh, there's a problem with our bank. You may want to move that money out right now because I need to keep that relationship with you, right? That happens with those guys.
Yeah.
You're not part of those guys.
Yeah, you're not on the inside with that crowd. That's the banks love those people. They hate us, because they're scared we're not going to pay the loans back,
Well, anyway, that's what happened. That really happened. And I have the people. I mean, if you want to know who those people are, you can testify to that. They're all in that film revenue reserve. They all got those calls.
Wow.
So it's a really interesting thing that happened. And I watched this happen. And I, of course, myself experienced, I was on the wrong side of 2000 when things went down on the NASDAQ, 90% of that went down. I was on the wrong side of that. I was on the wrong side of 2008. And so I told my wife both times, aren't you glad we're not retired? But then the question was, what do we do so that this doesn't happen the next time when we are retired? What do we do? And I never had an answer for that until I made this movie. I've always been looking.
All right, I got two questions for you, and we'll wrap this up because I know you're a busy man, and I don't want to take up any more of your time. What did you learn or discover during this shooting and putting together of this film that maybe you didn't know prior to?
I didn't know annuities could be used to guard against inflation. I had no idea.
Okay.
I had no idea that they could be used that way.
Okay.
And I didn't understand really how those things worked.
All right.
I didn't understand that pensions were grossly lying about their funding ratios.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. And I mean, I have people like this guy right here, he's in the book, he's in the film, he wrote these two books, how to steal a lot of money legally.
Yeah.
And who stole my pension.
Absolutely.
And absolutely most credible person on those topics.
Yes, sir.
And I'm like asking him, how does this happen? We have one crisis in America. Now this I've already knew, but it confirmed it to me. We only have one crisis in America. People go, oh, we got crisis over here. No, but we only have one. We have a crisis of ethics. We have a crisis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally.
And if you want to fix America, you fix that problem.
Yes.
We have to get back to telling the truth,
Ooh.
doing the right thing, and saying it to each other.
Yes.
Stop, and that starts by not lying to ourselves, by the
Yes.
way.
That's right.
And we do that. I mean, you think about it, you lie to yourself,
I
oh,
agree.
I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be fine. No, you're not. You're not fine. You haven't saved anything. You're not fine.
I know.
You're not fine. And so those are some of the takeaways for me. So I'm actually going to change my future is being changed because of what I've learned.
Stuff. That's very good. All right. So in wrapping this up, what's next for Doug Orchard? What are we going to work on next?
So I have a movie called M&A, Mergers and Acquisitions, which is the big M&A film. There's never been one done in motion picture on that topic. And that is relevant because 70% of all the bigger companies, these are companies worth maybe 2 million to 150 million, are owned by baby boomers.
Okay.
And that represents in total $10 trillion. But the only problem is any companies in that space, only 20% of those ever sell.
Wow.
And so that means they go liquidated and they just go poof. And that's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of vendors. That's a lot of communities suffer. That's a lot of everything unless that changes. So it looks at some really big issues in that movie.
Okay.
But that is a very important film because a third or more of our country are business owners. And
Yes.
and it is the lifeblood. It's what happens. And business is all. And then the film really looks at the other question about why so many of them are unhappy when they sell. 70% of these guys, they get crazy money, but they're not happy after the sell. Why? They got everything they wanted. They're not happy because business is business is service. You are serving people when you do business. You're serving your family, you're serving your community through taxes. You got to be serving clients. Else you aren't going to do business long.
I love it.
And so you get something out of that, right? And people, once they sell, they don't have that anymore.
That's right.
And they're like, ugh, why am I hating life? And so there's a lot of fun stuff in that movie. That movie actually has 35 minutes of acting, 14 actors. I went way bigger on that one, on the acting story, and having fun with it. But that's the next film. And I've got.
So have you finished it? Is it already wrapped up and you're done?
It's final editing, but it's not finished. It's not finished. It gets rated on the 25th of May with the Motion Picture Association, and then it'll come out in the fall. It will be this big premiere. It'll be in theaters only for quite a while. And then I'm going to make a big movie I'm going to take on life insurance.
Are you really?
Next year, I'm taking on a major film. There was someone who called me who's African-American, who's a financial advisor, deep Southern accent. And he's explained to me that he believes he can take people who are in his skin color, sharecropper, ancestral line in the South, and have them go from low class to middle class in one generation through life insurance. And all of a sudden I was like, you know what? Nobody's telling them the truth.
That's right.
Oh, we're going to give you reimbursements. That's not true. That's not true. You're never going to the government gets you to poverty line. That's it. And so you've got to do it yourself. And I thought, wow, I could address a lot of issues with that and really take that thing on. So that's something I'm working on. And then also there's a documentary of the big military guys that I've agreed to do. These are the guys who were killed bin Laden, the big Ghazi guy, the Black Hawk guy down, and the sniper for SEAL Team 7, and all these people. They're all together, and the top military people. They're all on this team, and they want to fix something in America big time. And so to showcase it, they're going to go to do like a jump out of a plane, a marathon run on the ground, and a swim in the water, and on 7 continents in 7 days. And the first one is in Antarctica.
Oh, wow.
Then Perth, then Dubai, then Cairo. I mean, it's this really crazy thing. And they got to see whatever that cargo plane is from the government. They got millions for this thing already. They got it all orchestrated. They've already got the permits, base jumping off of London Tower, all this crazy stuff they're doing. Anyway, they asked me to direct the whole thing. So that's the thing I'm doing early next year as well. So that just kind of gives you a sense of who I am, and people are listening, like, what does he do? And that's what I do. I got that call. Netflix and everybody wanted that. They've been all trying to get it. And they called me out of the blue and said, we want you to just do this, because they like the motivation factor and they trusted me. Yeah. And that was a huge honor, and it'll be fun. So that's what I'm up to.
Seth, you're a busy man. Again, thank you very much for taking this time out and spending this hour with me. Again, I love your work. love what you're doing. And it has that service foundation in the middle of it there. And I see that, and that's part of me as well. And I feel like that this gives people like me a tool to get out there, to communicate, to promote, to help those people that you were talking about, the grandmothers and those with the 250,000 and 300,000 in these accounts. Those are the ones that need to understand how to preserve, how to protect, and what you're doing is giving them the information to just wake up and realize what's really happening out there. And that's a huge thing. Thank you very much. How can people get in touch with and get to your material, Doug?
Well, most of my stuff's all on iTunes, Amazon, everything else. You
Okay.
could look me up. If you look at my website, though, my name, just look up Doug Orchard. I like take over Google for pages and pages. It's me.
Okay.
But DougOrchard.com, it'll list
Okay.
the links of all my films right there. You can go
Perfect.
right to them. Look me up on IMDb. You can see where they are. That's the best way.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you again. You have a great weekend. Should be pretty weather down in Florida this weekend, maybe, I guess.
It is. It's great.
All right, buddy.
Thank
Thank you,
so
Doug.
much.
We'll be in
Thank you,
touch.
Doug.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.